Singapore, it's a city of order and elegance, the arts and fine cuisine. It's the Raffles Hotel and the Singapore Cricket Club. But what it's also got now is a nightlife. For one weekend, it's the most spectacular nightlife in the world. The Singapore Grand Prix. For the first time, it's Formula One under lights. Singapore, it's a city as we've never seen it before, and on the evidence of the night practice yesterday, it's Formula One as we've never seen it before. It's just after 9:15 at night and we're ready for action, and that's the first time we've ever been able to say that in Grand Prix motor racing. Most other sports take place under lights, but Mark Blundell, I bet you thought you'd never see the day in Formula One.
I never would have thought this day would have come, actually. You see a Formula One car, 200 miles an hour, street lamps. Unbelievable. What a great environment. And
if anything, it adds extra drama here to the pit lane. The colours are so bright. Everything looks just that little bit more dramatic, doesn't it?
It does indeed, Steve. You know, artificial lighting. It's almost more than daylight. But I have to say, it's got a little bit of a familiarity to Le Mans, you know, 24-hour race. So there's some sensation of that. But again, because it's Formula One, just a little bit different, a little bit more unique.
And the great thing about racing at night, a couple of hours ago, it was about 38 degrees. It's now still pretty warm, but rather more comfortable for the drivers. It is going to be a tough race.
It's going to be very difficult indeed for the guys. I've seen a lot of the drivers get out the cockpits of the car, and they look very tired indeed. And I think this humidity is going to drain them. Even though it's night time, as you say, temperature's still warm.
Well, we're not going to get too dazzled by the bright lights, because after all, this is merely round 15 of a Formula One World Championship that's been full of action, excitement and controversy as well. Here's how we build up to qualifying over the next 45 minutes. A highly technical sport finds one more technicality. We now know this was inadmissible, but we're still unclear if it was illegal. Hamilton loses his appeal in Paris, but he's the top attraction in Singapore. He remains 1 point ahead in the championship, and we'll have a final reaction to the murky events of Spa. But it was all cut and dried in Monza as the sport celebrated its newest and youngest winner. And we'll try and work out what the future holds for Sebastian Vettel and Toro Rosso. And what's Jenson Button got to celebrate? Well, not a great deal. His team needs a shake-up, but he'll be our guide as we welcome an exciting new venue to Formula One. And we have to start.
India company landed on the island in 1819 and claimed it for the crown 5 years later. Singapore gained independence in 1965.
The world is starting to change for Singapore, because originally we were a trading port, and now it's a more an international city now. We need something special to bring people here, Formula One.
Singapore looks good enough in the day, so why go to all the bother and the expense of holding a race at night?
The night race came from Mr. Eccleston. He had the foresight to say that Singapore, night race in Singapore fit brilliantly, you know, because of the location. And he knew, given that short period of building a track here, he knew if any country could do it, Singapore could do it. From talking to him, negotiating with him, to building this building, and doing the track, the grandstands, everything took 18 months. And I think it's a bit of a record.
None of the teams has any data about how the new track will evolve, but Ferrari might have a handy advantage. The bitumen is made by their sponsor, Shell.
We were lucky because, thanks to our collaboration, we had the Fiorano track completely resurfaced with a new technology, with new product, and that helps a lot.
But the busiest workers here have been the electricians. 1,500 lights placed 4 meters apart, providing 3,000 lux. That's 100 times brighter than the lights on the average UK motorway. They're powered by diesel generators with double redundancy, so the lights are independent of Singapore's electricity grid. Organisers are as sure as they can be the lights won't go out in the middle of the race.
Safety is one of our paramount concerns, not just for the drivers, but for everyone else who has to work around the circuit. And of course, there has to be enough light for TV. Essentially, we don't want anybody to have to do anything too different to what they normally do at a daytime race.
If you look at the lights, it's really heartwarming. I mean, it's fabulous, the lights. I think walking down the pit lane with Bernie earlier, and he asked each team, I think no one had anything bad to say about it. Everybody said wonderful things about it.
Something else we haven't seen before is the airport-style security for everyone entering the paddock. The local police here are taking every precaution. But that's not deterring the locals who've given Formula One a bigger welcome than at any venue all season. Sir Stamford Raffles would be proud.
So, two very proud men, I'm sure, Bernie and President S.R. Narden of Singapore. How proud are you, gentlemen, of what's going on?
I'm very proud. The moment I arrived, somebody told me how impressed they were with the facilities that we have developed over a very short period of time with as near perfection as possible. And they said this will be a kind of landmark for others to emulate. That itself made me feel proud and done Singapore proud.
Bernie, I'm sure you're happy with what they've built here and the welcome we've had here.
It's incredible. I mean, you know, it's a lovely country, isn't it? Huh? People are nice and everything. Now you can see what people can do in Singapore. This is, without any doubt, the best in the world.
But also from us who go to all the races, it seems like the people have got on board with the race, are more excited about the race here than anywhere else we go.
That's what I mean, full of enthusiasm.
For the first time, they're seeing such a grand gathering of racing, and even those who have not been enthusiastic are enthused by what they have seen. And we will also learn from this experience.
And will the silver McLaren sparkle even brighter in the lights of Singapore? All the right things are being said, Mark, and some wonderful work has been done. The one thing that Singapore deserves, and we can't guarantee, is a great race, and we've got certain doubts about this circuit.
I think it's going to be a little bit tough to overtake here, but saying that, I think they've done a tremendous job. They've set up a circuit in the city. I think it bodes well for other circuits to do the same. And I think it suits the city environment, Steve. I think there's a lot to be said about running a race at night and then maybe beaming it back European times as well.
Of course, what was left unsaid is the fact that the main reason that we're racing under lights is because of the all-important European television audience. They can watch the action at 2 o'clock in the afternoon instead of 7 o'clock in the morning. Does that justify all this?
I think it does. I really do. I think you come to the city, you come to see a Formula One event. You know, it's spectacular to see around the streets in the daylight, let alone seeing it under artificial light and at night. Great sensation. I mean, everyone I've spoken to here has said fantastic. Drivers, wonderful. I think, you know, people like Australia are seriously going to have to think about it for their race to be improved.
Well, even before the cars took to the track in anger, Martin Brundle was out there reaching his verdict. It's astonishing to think of what it's actually cost to take Formula One in this style to this corner of the world. We know what it takes to light it. But here's Martin's verdict on the kind of racing we might see in these exotic surroundings of Singapore.
The Marina Bay Grand Prix circuit. It says uniquely Singapore up there. Well, it certainly is. The pit lane feeds into the first corner. It's very short, and they'll be coming into the racing line. A 6-lane flyover above my head. Down into turn 1. Plenty of runoff area on the outside. It's a long run from the grid down into here. 180 miles an hour, approaching heavy braking down to just 80 through the first apex. Then it's a swift right-hand curve into heavy braking again for a tight left-hand hairpin, just 60 miles an hour. The beginning of the lap is very busy. Uniquely too, it's the first night race in Formula One. Now if you look up at the lights, it can dazzle you. You need sunglasses or a tinted visor, but there is plenty of light down at racetrack level for the drivers to pick out those curbs. And turn 5 has already been well noted by the drivers, approaching at 150.
The way everything's been built up, the city's great. The work they've done on the track and the paddock is really nice. In terms of track itself, I think it's somewhere between Valencia and Monaco. with the heat and with the running in the dark, it's just probably just a complete new thing, I think, and it's going to be very exciting for the whole of Formula 1.
It's obvious that it's a pretty slow circuit, maybe not quite as slow as Monaco, but similar, and yes, just find the right setup and maximize the potential as usual.
It's very technical track. There's many number of the slow speed corners, and so I think it's going to be, it looks very difficult track to learn because there's just so many corners.
It looks great. Track looks really nice, well groomed, well presented. It's going to be challenging because in some areas it's very wide and looks more kind of Melbourne-esque in terms of its street aspect. And then at the end of the lap it looks more Phoenix or Detroit, classic 90-degree tight corners. So I think dealing with those differences is going to be quite difficult.
The key at this street circuit, again, downforce. It looks like a high downforce circuit. It looks like positioning and qualifying is going to be very important. So we've got to make sure we do a solid job. Not the same job as we did in Monza. Make sure we do a better job here.
Yes, Lewis and McLaren got it completely wrong in qualifying at Monza, failing to make it through to Q3. What will be the main lessons they take from that?
I think basically not to be caught out in the wrong tyre at the wrong time, and that's really what happened in Italy. There's a possibility that it could happen again here because the weather is pretty unpredictable in Singapore.
But this is the start of a 4-race battle for the Drivers' Championship, and as far as Hamilton and Massa are concerned, it's like starting the season afresh because just 1 point separates them as they get ready for Singapore and then Japan, China and Brazil. Kubica and Raikkonen have to be regarded as very distant contenders. The European season is behind us, and so too, thankfully, is all the confusion that followed Spa and McLaren's appeal in Paris.
McLaren didn't lose their appeal on the strengths or weaknesses of their case. Instead, despite going through all the evidence, the court ruled the appeal wasn't even admissible in the first place. This after Hamilton had fronted up to Ferrari's QC, Nigel Tozzi.
These lawyers tried to have a go at you, but you were pretty resolute with them. You were pretty firm with them.
Speak my mind, I guess, sometimes.
You wouldn't be intimidated?
No, not at all.
Lewis is impressive in a car, and he was impressive out of the car. I mean, he felt very strongly about the situation, about what he had done. Obviously, we felt, and he felt, that we'd won the race fair and square on the track, but I think he was keen to put that point across.
Did you know that it wasn't appealable?
No, clearly if we had known that, we wouldn't have appealed. But and in fact, on the Monday after the event, having registered our intention to appeal, we asked the court to advise us whether they thought the appeal was admissible or not, and the court advised us that they couldn't rule on that, and therefore we had to proceed to find out.
So do you understand why they let you put your case and waste your time for a day before they told you that it was all academic?
Well, in fairness to the court, I think they're trying to be very open and transparent, and I'm sure if we hadn't put the case, having prepared it, we'd have been frustrated.
We never expect anything, we give it our best shot, and we didn't get the result we'd liked, but we've moved on from there. It's in the past, and we focus on the next race. What's important is that we're still competitive, nothing's changed there, and we still have a fighting chance of winning the championship.
It can distract from the main task, and we're here, we've got 4 races to go, including this one, and the championship to be won. So, I think Lewis is doing a great job, so is Heikki, the car's improving, we've improved the car here. It's going to be a tight fight.
I feel very comfortable coming here. I feel like we're just coming from another race. It's almost like Monday never really happened,
What followed Spa was a mess, and then came the confusion in Paris. One is tempted to call it a farce. Did the image of the sport suffer still further?
I think it has suffered a little bit because, we've seen everybody go to court, and we've then seen that it's all of a sudden inadmissible. A little bit difficult to understand because what we saw on the TVs, what we read about, it looked like there was something there to fight for. But it's just been put out the door. And, very difficult as well for Lewis Hamilton. He's had to present himself in court, fight his case, fight his corner, and then turn up here and try and get the Grand Prix distance done the following weekend.
And McLaren had a strong case, it might.
Ways and just allow people to understand what the sport was all about and put something out there what they could understand. I still think it's difficult for the man in the street to understand the outcome of that. And, you know, we'll have to wait and see. This situation could happen again, even this weekend. So it'll be interesting.
Yeah, but at the moment it's all behind us, and McLaren are looking forward to the last 4 races that will decide everything in this season's championship. And the winning breakthrough for Sebastian Vettel in Monza 2 weeks ago was just the kind of positive news the sport needed. And we'll be talking to the sport's youngest winner in a few minutes' time. And we'll get more verdicts on Singapore, both as a tourist venue and more especially as a racetrack. And we'll try to anticipate who will come out on top in tonight's floodlit qualifying. And that's right after the break.
You're being very big, bold and brave, aren't you? Because you don't like heights, so you're not very good in someone's faces.
I'm not very good in someone's faces, and I don't like heights. You are very right.
Fantastic view of the city there, isn't it?
It is amazing. I think this has got to be the best way to see Singapore. That is just beautiful. I think it's going to be a very spectacular weekend, and especially having it at night. I mean, it's going to be amazing. Just watching a Formula 1 car come underneath us, which is part of the circuit, is going to be a real buzz.
And this is about the time of day that you're going to be going out as well.
Yeah, it is. So it's going to be strange. Get used to it, but it's, as I said, I'm excited to get out there and drive at night.
So what's your timetable? Are you going to be sleeping to the middle of the day and working to the middle of the night?
It is a bit weird. We're trying to stay on European time zone, so everything is a bit skew-if and sort of, you know, we're having breakfast at 2:30, 3 o'clock in the day when we'd be having lunch, and the same in the evening. You know, it's 8:55 now, and I'm going to be having lunch in about an hour. So it's a bit weird, and then we obviously have to stay awake until 5 in the morning. So dinner's at 3. Quite difficult to find a restaurant open at 3 o'clock in the morning. This is going to be the fastest part of the circuit here. You're coming down up a lot on the exit, and there's also a little bit of space if you do run wide. But it should be a fun corner, and if you're going to be able to overtake anywhere, it's probably going to be here.
It's apparently 4 times as bright as a normal sports stadium would be, but is it going to do the job?
I think it's going to be bright enough. You know, it's not as bright as daylight, and it's a very different light. The biggest problem we're going to have, I think, is when we're turning into certain corners and we're looking to the left or to the right, actually into the corner, we're going to get the light shining in on our visors. So I have 10 different shades of visor to try this weekend to try and get the one that sort of suits my eye.
What about if it rains as well? Because that's going to have a huge impact, isn't it?
It will, you know, and I think that's the worry more than anything else. You know, if it rains, the glare off the road is going to be pretty intense. So I'm looking forward.
And ride some of those bumps better.
It is very, very difficult, definitely. It's one, I think, probably the most difficult in the year. So many corners and, you know, bumps and curbs and everything. And it's quite a challenge.
Going into corner 7 from corner 5 is very, very bumpy, and we have to make some compromise because otherwise you could not see nothing on the braking point as the car is, the wheels are in the air.
Bottoming was a lot, and you could even see sparks flying from my teammate, I think, at one point. And but we got it sorted out, and just in engineering, that's the challenge, you know, that you have to get used to a new track completely in terms of everything, ride height, setup, and balance, and all these things.
Well, it's good for the fans to see the cars dancing around, but you know, for us, it's quite extreme.
You've got to have a car that rides the bumps well, which has not been our forte in the past, but it seems to be okay here. But it's an interesting circuit. There's a lot of very slow corners, not many quick ones, but I'm enjoying driving here, and it's quite interesting driving in this dim light with these bright lights shining down on you.
Lewis was immediately quick, so too Felipe Massa. Fernando Alonso right up there at the top of the charts as well.
Yeah, a little bit of a surprise. Renault actually quick with Piquet as well, and I think Alonso will be very happy with the lap. He finished yesterday top of the timesheets, today also. We'll just have to wait until qualifying. Maybe not enough fuel in there, but what you can get there is a read from the drivers. Very bumpy. They're used to snooker table style circuits these days. They're not used to bumps.
But are there overtaking opportunities out there? We certainly saw plenty of overtaking at Monza 2 weeks ago. Most of it came from Lewis Hamilton, but that Italian Grand Prix also gave Sebastian Vettel the victory, and he became the sport's youngest ever Grand Prix winner. And Toro Rosso became a winning team, getting their tactics absolutely right. Louise Goodman now looks back.
record-breaking weekend for Sebastian Vettel started with his first ever pole position and culminated in the 21-year-old German becoming Formula One's youngest ever winner, beating Fernando Alonso's tally by 318 days.
I guess you've been dreaming about winning your first Grand Prix since you first started racing as a little kid. Did it live up to your expectations?
Well, it was much better. I mean, I think Monza also is a special circuit, a special place to win. My first win, obviously, very special, very unique. Obviously, for an Italian Tifosi, all the fans cheering and shouting and singing, screaming at you is, you know, these kind of pictures I was never able to imagine before, and I will never be able to forget in the future.
I remember my first win was a bit of similar circumstance. I was driving at the time for Benetton. That was also the first win for us at the time, and my first one after 36 races. So I was also young. It reminds me a bit. And then, of course, to have the first win on this position as a team owner, yeah, was something special, and I'm very happy to collect this into my collection.
At what point did you know that you were going to do it?
I think the last 10 laps I start to think, you know, you're really leading that race, and if you continue you will win it. But then the next thought I had, okay, don't think about that, just keep going, keep pushing, because the conditions were very difficult. In the end it was starting to have a dry line, so once you were a bit off that line with your car, it was very, very easy to lose control. But as I said, in the last couple of laps I start to control and start to back off, so I didn't hit the curbs that hard anymore, and went a bit more conservative here and there and everywhere, so I didn't want to break the car, obviously, and just brought it home.
There was not one mistake, there was not any bad lap, there was nothing. It just did like a world champion would do. I think for a 21-year-old boy, how he behaves, how he works, how he drives, how he got this win is very special. And if he doesn't hurt himself, we're going to see a lot of more wins.
Sometimes a team and a driver has a weekend where absolutely everything goes right, but it was more than that. What should we expect from Sebastian Vettel and Toro Rosso in the 4 races that remain?
I think maybe circumstances suited them, because the car was definitely competitive in the wet. Saying that, Toro Rosso have been progressing very well. Sebastian Vettel, we said early on in the season, definitely a star of the future. Just underlined that with his first Grand Prix win. Only a young man, 21 years old. There's a lot more to come from him. Relevant to his machinery, and that's the important question now. Is the Red Bull next year going to be the car that's going to give him the base that he needs to go the next step?
Fantastic performance, one of the performances of the season. Wasn't part of the championship battle. How do you think that might develop in this weekend to come?
Very interested indeed, Steve, because I think McLaren have been very fast. I think Ferrari also very quick. Kovalainen a little bit on his back foot slightly compared to Hamilton, but I think Lewis might have the upper hand, and when it comes to qualifying, certainly he's the man to watch.
Well, it's coming up to, what, 5 to 10 at night here in Singapore, and qualifying for the Singapore Grand Prix is moments away. Huge crowds around the Marina Bay circuit, and you can keep in touch with the events and the reaction to what happens in the course of the next hour on the ITV F1 website. And that will also give you all the F1 stats and all the F1 news, the fantasy game as well. I will take a further moment to give you details of this week's ITV F1 competition.
In Spa, Claire Maloney knew that her 60th is a diamond anniversary, and she's just enjoyed a weekend at the Goodwood Revival. In Monza, Valerie Pownall identified Kimi Raikkonen as a Ferrari driver, and she's won a trip to next year's Spanish Grand Prix. This weekend we've got a great opportunity, the chance to experience a racing lap of Silverstone in the Santander 2-seater Grand Prix car driven by our very own Martin Brundle. You'll have transport to the circuit, a day at Silverstone with a friend, including lunch, and the experience of a lifetime as the Kings Lynn Crusader drives you around the Silverstone racetrack in the Santander 2-seater, a Grand Prix car that has a top speed of 200 miles an hour, 6-speed gearbox, and does 0 to 100 miles an hour in 4 seconds. So to be in with the chance of winning this great prize courtesy of Santander and Abbey, just answer this question correctly from your prospective chauffeur.
Who was my teammate at Benetton in 1992? A. Michael Schumacher, B. Mika Hakkinen, or C. Damon Hill? Good luck.
To enter, call 090 4959 6789. Calls cost £1 from a BT landline. Calls from other networks may be higher, and from mobiles will be considerably more. Or you can text F1, followed by your answer of A, B or C, to 63337. Text also costs £1, plus one standard network rate message. Digital satellite and cable viewers can enter by pressing their red button now. You can enter for free at itv.com until 5 p.m. Friday, 3rd of October. Entrants must be 18 or over. Phone lines close 5 p.m. Tuesday, the 30th of September. And entries made after the closing time won't be counted, but may still be charged.
I'm down at Williams with a man whose name is synonymous with great drives at Silverstone, Damon Hill. What do you think of this place? It's got a real buzz to it, hasn't it?
It really has. I think a city like this is going to be great, and it's going to come alive at night time. And of course, to have a Grand Prix taking place in the evening, it's added a kind of special feel to it.
Fantastic facilities, but the government has poured huge amounts of cash into it. Do you think that's something that the British government should be doing with circuits?
Well, I think this is starting to be a question for me. I think that there's a cachet that Grand Prix racing brings to any country, and I think that's got to be looked at for us at Silverstone as to whether or not, in the UK, as to whether or not there's additional benefits that aren't quantifiable in the straight sense of ticket sales.
Thanks, Damon.
Pleasure.
Everyone is impressed with what's going on here in Singapore. Damon Hill, former world champion included. But in a few minutes' time, it's lights, cameras and action. Stay with us as Formula One officially enters the dark ages. Qualifying for the Singapore Grand Prix is coming right up.